Up next, we have another David Cronenberg masterpiece, The Fly from 1986. It's starring Jeff L. Goldblum from Laverne and Shirley and Geena Davis. Some of you might remember her from her work on Knight Rider. It's true, both of them were established television actors who took a big risk and made the leap to the big screen just for this film. And it looks like it paid off for both of them because they even got married to each other, coincidentally. And I looked this up, and the music for The Fly was scored by a guy named Howard Shore. You know, I'll never understand directors who change composers for every film. It's like just when you start to develop a creative shorthand, it's on to the next young hotshot. So if I were Cronenberg, I would have stuck with the composer either from Scanners or Videodrome. I can't remember their names, but Howard Shore did a decent enough job. The film begins with an establishing shot of a fundraiser/cocktail party put on by Bartok Science Industries. And it's a big, wide shot from above. But here's what confused me. There's nothing in the air, nothing hanging from the ceiling. It's just a huge empty space. And I'm thinking to myself, why is the ceiling so high in this place? Usually for a fancy public event like that, you would expect some kind of fancy lighting or art installation or an elaborate chandelier. Because I went back and watched 19 other movies, and sure enough, all of their establishing shots of fundraiser/cocktail parties had fancy stuff hanging from the ceiling. And I'm putting a link to those other 19 films along with still frames in the show notes. Also, did anyone else notice that there was no diegetic music playing in the place? Because normally you'd want to hire a string quartet for that sort of event. It definitely wasn't very cheerful. Now let's talk about the most controversial and politically problematic aspect of this film, which was Jeff L. Goldblum's alpha male behavior. So in the first scene, he gets a female reporter that he just met to drive him out to his sketchy warehouse, which is pretty bold, but it's also classic Goldblum. So listeners, I'm asking you, do you think it's more alpha male to make a woman drive you around, or is it more alpha male to be the driver? Let me know in the comments. Also, he shows more of that classic alpha male behavior on the way there by getting car sick. And we almost had some Cronenberg body horror right out of the gate. So the two of them walk into his creepy warehouse/science lab, and this film turns into a borderline musical. Jeff L. Goldblum seriously sits down and shreds arpeggios on his piano. But then he stops and gets up and makes her that cappuccino he promised her. But here's the problem. I'm surprised that with all of his alpha male training, he didn't just kick back and wave his hand and make her play the piano and make him a cappuccino. She is quickly getting bored, so he shows off his telepods, and she thinks that they are phone booths. But that actually makes perfect sense that she would think that they were phone booths. I mean, they are called telepods, which is what everyone called phone booths back in the 80s. Plus, they look exactly like phone booths. And it is well known that David Cronenberg blew most of the budget on that opening fundraiser cocktail party scene, so he couldn't actually afford to design futuristic-looking telepods. Thus, the literal phone booths. But there's one thing that I didn't understand. Why did he have that other broken phone booth under a tarp off to the side? What was the deal with that? Was it for a later plot point? Well, maybe they'll use it in the sequel if one ever gets made. Later on, Jeff L. Goldblum goes full-on toxic masculinity by doing some gymnastics moves and punching through a wooden door frame. And then he brings home a baboon and he rips off his own fingernails. What does it all mean? I don't know, but it's classic Cronenberg. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. And by the way, If you're on Letterboxd, add me. I'm Carl Kingdom over there. I'll put a link in the show notes. And now, let's move on to our feature segment.